got my DVD here, and it says that it was released in... I don't know what it does. I don't know. It was released. It was released. I'm Tom Dickinson.
And I'm Louis Midas.
And this is The Cloister Room,
a podcast about Doctor Who and other things.
Planet of the Daleks.
That planet of the Daleks. That isn't Skaro.
No, well, it's not Skaro. Skaro is discussed.
It is discussed, but it is not visited.
It is certainly not. So, what did you think of Planet of the Daleks?
I really liked it.
Did ya?
I did.
Okay. I think it's okay. It's not one of my favorite Doctor Who stories of all time, but it's okay.
It is okay. It's more than okay in my book, in my opinion. I just haven't. I don't know what it was. I don't know. It's something about it struck me, and I just really liked it. I feel like it probably could have done to be a little bit shorter than it was.
It was 6 parts, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, the thing is, it's kind of the same story as the Daleks.
Kind of.
Only it's a story short. It's an episode shorter, so.
Oh, so it actually is a trimmed down the Daleks. So yeah, so they actually did do a good job of they were able to eliminate a whole episode. I just feel like more could go though. But
yeah, I think probably the thing about this story that's sort of most remarked on, or the two things I guess that are most remarked on in the fandom, is one, that it's kind of the same story as the Daleks, or at least it recycles many of the same elements. And 2, that it is kind of the second half of a 12-part epic, which isn't really true. I mean, it picks up from the previous story, it picks up from the cliffhanger of the previous story, but it's like, it's its own story. You haven't seen the story before this, I assume.
No.
But it still made sense as a story, I imagine.
Yeah, it did. I sort of filled in the blanks. I think the Doctor was shot. And actually, I didn't. I wasn't really sure what had happened, but I used the power of Wikipedia to figure out that it was the result of the Doctor being shot. But I mean, like, I could understand that. I could have inferred it.
Yeah, he just wasn't doing too well. That's all that you really need to know. At the beginning of the story, the Doctor just isn't doing too well.
Right. And that's fine. I don't know. See, I think that this is possibly the most revolutionary Dalek story that I've seen, that I think, because it features something I don't think I've ever seen in a Dalek story before.
What's that?
And that is that this features a Dalek holding something, like with his sucker. And
it does, doesn't it?
It does. And I think we need to acknowledge that this is the most amazing thing I think I've ever seen a Dalek do.
Well, to be perfectly honest, I think there are other instances of it, and I'm not sure when the first one was. So I don't know whether this is the origination of that.
Okay. Well, that fair enough. I mean, I'm not sure I've ever seen it before. And so in my mind, my mind was blown when I saw this. I
don't remember, what was he holding?
A map, like a little paper map. And it's great because it's just this Dalek who, for multiple scenes, is just carrying around this little paper map and like holding it up so other Daleks can see it. And it's just the greatest thing ever. It's so great. I loved it so much. I actually took a screenshot of it and pasted it into my notes.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's dedication. So was that the major selling point of the story for you?
Yes, actually. No, I just love this. I thought it was great. I know I'm not building a very strong case for this episode, but I loved it. I loved that. But yeah, no, and I felt bad for that Dalek too, because it was like his only job. Because there are multiple scenes where he's still holding it, and I feel like he's maybe waiting for someone to ask him, to see the map again so that he can hold it up for them again. Because it's just I don't know, but it's good continuity though, because he definitely keeps on holding it.
Well, it's I feel like he kind of gets, I guess I would say he gets rewarded for doing a job well, because we see in this story we see what happens to a Dalek that doesn't do its job very well. I think this is something you don't see very often in Doctor Who, that a Dalek gets chewed out by its boss and then exterminated for doing a bad job.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, so you see a bit of the hierarchy going on, and yeah, what happens? Yeah,
but the map Dalek, I mean, he does his job and then he doesn't get exterminated.
That's right. Yeah, and that is pretty noteworthy, I think. It's funny that you point how similar it is to the Daleks, and it definitely was. But what I was thinking when the episode started was how similar it was to the Ark.
In what way?
Because they land in this jungle, and it's full of life and things like that. And then they come to these beings who are invisible.
That's true, yeah. That's true, as they say.
Yes, as they say. But yeah. So I before we got all the context and that like these people were Thals or whatever, and what the invisible creatures were, I was like, oh man, these are Refusians, and this is definitely like, yeah. I was so sure this was going to turn out to be like the Ark or something. Or not necessarily the Ark, but like a sort of, I don't know, I just figured it really evoked that image for me.
I wonder if solar flares were involved.
Could have been. And I think I don't know how the Thals know about Earth.
It's not explained. I think they might have picked it up from Ian and Barbara.
That could be, yeah. But like, there are a couple points where Joe is talking to the Thals about Earth, and they're like, that's from Legends or whatever. And I don't really remember how much Earth was like mythologized in the Ark, but I feel like it was kind of mythologized there too. But I could be wrong about that. So overall, it just kind of evoked a strong Ark image for me. But
well, yeah, that is true. You do have it is kind of like the Refusians, who are invisible, but they don't have, the Refusians didn't figure out how to cope with invisibility and how to sort of make yourself visible, which is by using the big things.
Right. Yeah, and maybe they should have.
So like there are, I guess there are aspects of this that recall the Ark, but it is very reminiscent of the Daleks. Like there's an abandoned city on a jungle planet, and a threat to all life on the planet that's not a Dalek, and the Doctor and his companion lead the Thals in an assault on the Dalek city, and yada yada yada, and it's all very similar. Like one of the Thals falls in love with the Doctor's companion.
It's funny. It's actually been a very long time since I've seen the Daleks, so I actually don't remember a lot of this. But I will take your word for it. I don't know. Maybe in some sense this was them trying to sneak in kind of like a rerun before reruns were a thing.
Well, I think this story was written by Terry Nation, who created the Daleks and wrote that story.
Right.
And this was Terry Nation's return to Doctor Who after a long time away.
Oh.
So maybe he was kind of revisiting his greatest hits or whatever.
Right. This was a reboot.
So, of a sort, I guess. I think there was a period where Doctor Who didn't have access to the Daleks, couldn't use them because Terry Nation was very busy trying to, start his American Dalek show. But after that failed, Doctor Who got the rights to use the Daleks back. And they did one without Terry Nation, and then Terry Nation wanted to do one, so they let him do one, and it was basically the same story again.
So did they regret this decision?
I don't know if they regretted it. I think they I don't know, they did what they could with what they had. I mean, it's certainly a better looking story than the Daleks in terms of like technical sophistication.
True.
and visually. I mean, and not just because it's on color, it's also got sort of it's more actiony in its presentation, I guess.
Yeah. So I think I don't know. I think if you're gonna redo the Daleks, I think they did a good job of it. And as I said, I didn't really remember the Daleks, but I'm sure that if I could remember the Daleks better, I would have seen a lot more similarities than I did. So does this mean that this was would that have made this the second time that the third Doctor saw the Daleks or encountered the Daleks, or was this his first time?
This was his second.
Okay, so the one that came before this was him as well.
Mm-hmm.
Okay,
I think it was Day of the Daleks. I get my Dalek stories confused sometimes, but I think it was Day of the Daleks.
Well, and that's understandable. It's funny. I guess there's no getting past how similar this is to the Daleks, but I actually really liked seeing the Thals again.
Yeah, it kind of ties the Daleks back in with their original mythology and like the original idea behind the Daleks in a way that they usually aren't. Like you usually kind of leave behind the story of what happened in the Daleks, and all that we really take away from it is the Dalek designs and the fact that they shout a lot.
Right. Yeah, kind of their whole exterminating thing. Like that's their main, mission or whatever. It's just exterminate everything. And so that's kind of all you really need to know, and that's really the only thing that matters for most Dalek stories. But when they're up against the Thals, you kind of have that whole history. Like but are the Thals like still out there? Is that like a thing? Do they get like exterminated in a later episode?
I mean, the Thals are still out there. I mean, there's no like death of the Thals story. Like this is the end of the Thal race.
So we could theoretically see the Thals again, if for whatever reason.
I suppose we could.
I think that would be neat.
Yeah, I would like to see the Thals. I think it would be kind of interesting to see the Thals without the Daleks, and maybe just like this is a Thal story, Planet of the Thals. And the Doctor shows up and has an adventure with the Thals, doing something that has nothing to do with Daleks.
Oh man, what if like the Thals came up with their own Dalek version that were like the Halts or something?
The Halts. And they would say, "Halt! Halt!"
Exactly. I mean, I think that would have to be their catchphrase. So yeah, like watch it all come just full circle.
Full circle, indeed. Yeah, the Thals have been reused in a couple of Big Finish plays. But I think that their only appearances in the classic series were, the Daleks, and then this, and then Genesis of the Daleks. Yeah, I think that was the only time Thals appeared. So there's a rich vein of untapped Thal mythology, as you might say.
Yes.
Yeah. Anyhow, and although Big Finish has done some, and I think some of the novels might have done some as well. I think it's time to see the Thals come back.
Yeah, because they're pretty much like the original. Well, they are pretty much the original enemies of the Daleks, and like even more so than like the Doctor, because obviously the Doctor's got to stop the Daleks whenever they appear, but the Thals. I feel like the Thals and the Doctor can really bond over this, of how much they just need to stop the Daleks. So I feel like there's a lot you could do with the Thals.
Well, the Thals have more kind of culturally invested in their struggle against the Daleks than the Time Lords do.
That's true.
So, like, because the Daleks aren't the ancient enemies of the Time Lords or anything. The ancient enemy of the Time Lords is the vampires. So maybe we're ripe for a Thals versus vampires story.
Ooh, yeah, there you go. They have their own like version of the Time War. I don't know what it would be, but they have their own version of that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I don't know. I'm trying to think of like a time lock, but like with blood, like a blood lock or something. I don't know.
A blood lock.
Because vampires, they suck blood. So I'm trying to work in that, but it's not really working out. So I don't know. So yes, I think we should see the Thals again.
Maybe someday we will. Another sort of notable thing, I guess, about this story is that it features the actor Bernard Horsfall, who is an actor who also played some Time Lords. So is his character an undercover Time Lord working with the Thals? Who knows?
I think we have to assume that it is. Because, I mean, you know, what other possible excuse could they have for two actors looking alike in Doctor Who? Or two characters looking exactly alike, I should say.
Well, I don't know. Bernard Horsfall appeared in several stories, including The Mind Robber, and I think there is a novel that says that his Mind Robber character is actually the same as his Time Lord character, Chancellor Goth from The Deadly Assassin. So, I don't know. Maybe this one is too. I don't know.
Could be. There's probably wiggle room in there.
Yeah, one assumes. Did you know that one of the episodes of this story is in black and white?
Wait, what?
You didn't notice it was in black and white, did you?
No, I didn't.
Because they unblack and whited it. Or rather, I suppose the more proper term for that would be they colorized it.
Right.
Episode 3 of this story was one of the episodes that was sort of pseudo lost and then recovered, but only in black and white format. And so for the DVD release, which was only a few years ago, I think it was like 2008, 2009, probably in the UK in 2009, if it was released in the US in 2010. But anyhow, so at that time they recolored it using magic.
Well, how about that?
The technique they used is actually kind of interesting. Apparently, the black and white prints of it contained tiny little dots that actually someone figured out were color information.
Really?
And so they extracted color information from the black and white print.
Huh. That's really interesting. I'd kind of be interested to know more about that technique.
Well, there's if you have the DVD, I don't know if you do, but if you do, there's a featurette on it. Talking for about, I don't know, like 10 or 15 minutes about the extensive color work they did on it. And it's pretty interesting. Apparently they had one guy who was doing the color dot thing, and then they had another team who was doing some manual work on it, and they took the best bits from each and then did some touch-ups, and they did a lot of stuff, and I couldn't even really tell the difference in the final product, even though I knew.
I didn't know, and it was totally unnoticeable to me.
Well, that's good. So you'll never have to worry about it.
No, I won't.
We don't have to worry about pesky black and white stories anymore. We got the color.
We do.
We got the color.
We got it. We got it right here. But yeah, that's really weird. So wait, how is this lost, or halvesies lost?
Well, in the same way that that a lot of the stories in the 60s were lost.
So they were, but I didn't. So they were still in, like, even in the third Doctor era, they were still junking tapes.
Oh yeah. They the process wasn't like officially stopped until I think 1977.
Oh, okay.
And during that time, obviously the stuff that was more recent was in wider circulation with overseas broadcasters at the time, because it was, newer, so they hadn't had a chance to go out of circulation yet. So they had a much easier time, I think, tracking down all those Pertwee episodes. But some of them they only got in black and white because some broadcasters only requested a black and white copy because I don't really know. Presumably because they were in countries where color TV was not yet super common.
Interesting. I guess that makes sense. That's kind of weird. I just kind of took for granted that we had all of the Pertwee episodes. I didn't realize that that at one point they were missing. Yeah,
I think I think it's been quite a while since there were any that were actually missing, but up until recently there was some that didn't exist in color, and that includes one episode of this story plus I think all 6 episodes of The Mind of Evil were only in black and white until a very recent colorization job. I don't know if there are any out there that are still black and white only. I don't think so. You'd think I'd know that having watched them all in order, but I guess I don't. So do you? What about this story was it that made you like it to the extent that you did?
I'd already told you that Dalek.
It was just that Dalek.
Well, I don't know. I mean, I'm not sure I ever at any point thought like, wow, this is such an original story. So I'm glad that I didn't like it on that merit. But I don't know. I mean, I think, you know what it might have partially been is that I don't think I've seen the third Doctor fight the Daleks at all. And I think that might have had something to do with it.
Well, he had 3 Dalek stories. So here's one of them.
Well, there you have it. I don't know. I think, I really don't know. I don't know. I feel like it kind of had some pretty neat elements to it. Like, I mean, I guess it was interesting to see we didn't really see the Daleks be invisible at all, although supposedly they had mastered invisibility.
No. I wonder if the whole thing or just the mutant inside would have been invisible.
Well, you never know.
I suppose I never do.
Perhaps all Dalek mutants are invisible nowadays, except for when you look at them.
Mm-hmm. Everyone's invisible until you look at them.
Yeah, I guess so. But yeah. So I guess, does anything ever happen with that? Did the invisible Daleks ever come back?
I don't know, and I don't think it's necessarily that great of an idea.
I think it would make I think it would make things easier, like filming wise. Like, like how did those Daleks get up those stairs? Well, they were just invisible while they went up those stairs. Yeah.
It's kind of interesting to take one of the most iconic designs in British science fiction history and have this big concept. Let's make it invisible.
Yeah, I would probably say that's true. I can't imagine that would result in a very good story, or just in general, just a very good. It's not good marketing.
I guess not. It isn't.
I don't know. I just, maybe I liked this story so much just because it was something I had seen before, and it made me feel comfortable and nostalgic.
Well, maybe that was part of the intent. I mean, it was the 10th year of Doctor Who, so kind of like now in last year, in the 50th anniversary of Doctor Who, you had like let's bring back the Ice Warriors and things like that. It could be that like let's have Terry Nation just redo the thing he did 10 years ago.
Yeah, it's a good formula, so why mess with it? Also, this is not like essential to the plot or anything, but I kind of thought the idea of liquid ice was a neat. I mean, like not water, but like frozen, molten ice, I think is what it's referred to at one point.
I believe that is the term they use.
Yeah, that's a cool idea.
It's quite literally a cool idea. Molten ice, a cool idea.
Yes, exactly. But yeah, I thought that was a neat concept. I don't know. I don't remember what the explanation was, but it was neat. I don't know. Something about it I just liked. I guess it did. It did end up becoming important to the plot, so I guess I can call it important.
Yeah, it was. I mean, it was used. Like it was made use of in the plot. So I don't know how important it was.
Yes. Well, probably not very. But so is that like officially like, or is being cold still an issue for Daleks? Like even now?
I don't know, because they seem to be able to operate in space, don't they?
That's true, and it doesn't get much colder than space.
Huh. I don't know. I honestly do not know.
Yeah, so...
Well, everyone's got a weakness, and for the Cybermen, it's gold. For the Daleks, it's cold.
Yes. Now we just need... maybe for the Weeping Angels, it'll be mold. We'll complete that trifecta.
That would be great. Moldy old statues. One of the Daleks in this story, and I don't know which one, but one of them reappears in Asylum of the Daleks.
Ah...
when the Doctor goes into the intensive care unit, one of the Daleks from Spiridon is present there and recognizes him.
Ah,
I bet it's the map one.
Probably. Maybe he's still hanging on to that map. He just fixates on the idea that there was that one time when he did a good job and he held that map, and then the Doctor came and ruined everything.
Yep.
That map is a symbol and a reminder of better times.
I kind of like how the story ends with the Daleks seemingly like completely defeated, and then it's like, oh, well, good job, everyone. And then all of a sudden they show up again, and then the Doctor and Jo have to rush right back into the TARDIS and run away. I kind of like that.
Yeah, I like that too. I like the idea that, and the Dalek leader even says, the Daleks are never defeated. I kind of like them just directly stating that, because it kind of is true. I like that.
The Daleks are never defeated, but they are also never really all that successful.
That's true. It's kind of like just this equilibrium.
They're always somewhere in between.
Yeah.
And maybe that's just a nice place for Daleks to be.
Yeah, they just kind of average out to being mildly successful.
Mm-hmm.
They're surviving, I guess. They when you weigh everything out, they're at least still around. They're not doing great on their mission to exterminate every living thing, but they're also not dead.
Some of them aren't.
Right.
In this story, the Doctor notes that most Daleks emit a distress signal when their shells are tampered with. Do you recall that?
I do recall that.
So some don't, apparently. I wonder why.
Is it just like personal preference, maybe, or just like random lottery? Like, all right, we can only make enough emergency transmitters to go in 3/4 of all of our Daleks. So some of you're just really out of luck. If you run into trouble, we can't help you.
If you run into trouble, just scream.
Yeah. That or a buddy system whereby the buddy is the one with the signal or whatever, and then he'll relay your screams to Dalek High Command.
Please hold. Your screams are important to us.
Yes, exactly. So yeah, is that does that continue to be true? Because I feel like this is just jam packed with Dalek mythos right here, and do they still have these emergency whatevers? That's what I want to know.
Most of them, probably. One assumes. I honestly don't know. They could have run out.
They could have, yeah. Maybe they ran out, but they didn't tell anyone, and they were just like, listen, this is going to get us in a lot of trouble if we just go out and tell our Daleks that they don't actually have these emergency transponders. They're going to not want to go do stuff for us, so let's just quietly stop putting them in, and no one will notice. But yeah, no, I was just, it's interesting because, I don't know, there's these things that I don't think about when I'm watching Daleks, getting blown to bits. Like, is that one sending out a distress signal?
At that point, it probably doesn't matter all that much.
No, probably not. So there's one part I really like, and I don't know what it is about it. It's just like something about the way the scene is just done. Is where they're trying to plant the bombs or whatever, and they drop one, and the Doctor has to fish it out of a room full of just these sleepy, half awake Daleks who are just kind of shambling around. I don't know, something about that I just really like. It's just like those Daleks, they're all just waking up from a long sleep. They're not ready to exterminate yet. The Doctor just goes in and he plucks out that bomb.
Yep.
I don't know.
They were dizzy Daleks.
Yes, they were. Another thing about the end that I liked was kind of how the Doctor took aside the Thals and was like, listen, you can go and you can tell stories about how you defeated the Daleks, but don't glamorize it, and talk about the lives you lost. And I thought that was pretty neat of the Third Doctor to sort of be like that.
It is, but it felt kind of hypocritical to me.
Really?
Because he's the action hero Doctor.
Well, that's why it meant
he's the Doctor who does karate chops and yells "Hi!" and is always wearing these frilly outfits and then being all actiony and getting into really long vehicle chases and stuff like that. So I was like, well, who are you to talk?
Well, so he didn't say you couldn't glamorize vehicle chases. I mean,
well, he glamorizes Venusian Aikido.
But no, this is why it meant so much coming from him. He realizes, at the end of the day, he knows what's important. He knows, You don't glamorize war. Because, I don't know. I think it's okay.
Yeah. I didn't actually object to it or anything. I just thought it was kind of ironic that of all the doctors to say that, it would be Mr. Action Doctor. Mr. Hi.
Well, yeah. I feel like it's kind of something that any doctor would say, although I don't know.
Probably not the first Doctor, because in the Daleks, which is a story that's very similar to this, basically a lot of the plot revolves around the Doctor and Ian trying to convince the unwarlike Thals that they should go to war because pacifism is dumb.
So maybe here the Doctor should have been trying to correct his past mistake of setting the Thals on the warpath.
Well, maybe that's what he's trying to do. Yeah.
Yeah, maybe. Maybe he's trying to undo that mistake kind of subtly. Actually, it's funny because this partially reminded me, not really, I guess, but I was reminded of the Impossible Planet / the Satan Pit, because in that episode, the Doctor made maybe not no effort, but almost no effort to save the Ood. And in this episode, he makes no effort pretty much to save the, what are they, the Spiridons?
Yeah.
Even though they are the slaves of the Daleks, they just kind of go ahead and die with the Daleks.
Oh well.
Yeah,
someone's got to go. Someone's got to bite it. Might as well not be humans or Thals.
Right. Yeah. They might as well be invisible. So maybe the Doctor needs to make it up to the Spiridons in a later episode, much like he makes it up to the Ood.
He kind of does. I mean, he doesn't really make it up to the Ood. He doesn't you can't replace the lost Ood. I mean, they all died.
That's true. They do. He just sort of, he really just made himself feel better about the Ood.
Yeah.
I guess we have to assume that the Thals are just in this never-ending battle with the Daleks. At least that's what it kind of seems like here.
Well, yeah, I guess they must be, but we don't ever see all that much of it.
That's true.
So I kind of wonder how that's going.
Probably not too well. Well, the Daleks do have this weapon-resistant armor that covers every inch of them, and the Thals are basically just humans wearing cloth. So probably not too great.
Yeah. Well, I think they're wearing more cloth now than they were in the Daleks, so there is some progress.
I guess so. I guess that is a plus. So are there just a bunch of planets out there where there are creatures that can turn invisible? Because, I mean, this is the second story featuring indigenous life that can turn invisible, or is just invisible permanently.
Well, there are a lot of solar flares.
I guess so.
In a lot of places. A lot of stars have flares.
That's true. So, even a small percentage of those would still yield a massive number of potentially invisibility-inducing flares. So, even if not all of them induce invisibility, some of them do, and there's plenty of them happening every day.
People are becoming invisible every day.
Yeah, it can happen. It can happen to you. You don't think it could happen to you, but then it does. You
mind your own business, and then pretty soon you're invisible, and then there's a monoid throwing your flower vase on the floor. A monoid just barging into your home, picking up a vase and throwing it on the floor.
Yeah, that can happen. That's a real risk.
God, the new series needs comedy monoids so bad.
It really does.
It needs pathetic monoids that speak in exposition and behave childishly and think that they're evil, but they're just dumb. It needs it.
Yeah, I think it is really missing that.
All right, Lewis.
Yes.
It is now time to select the next story that we'll be watching via random selection after Planet of the Daleks.
Ooh.
Okay. So
okay.
I'm gonna do it.
You do it.
All right. Random selector is selecting randomly, and it's The Claws of Axos.
Ooh, I've heard of that one.
I've heard of it and seen it.
Well, that's cheating. You've seen all of them.
Uh-huh.
I don't remember what it's about, though. I mean, well, I never knew what it was about, but I I don't remember anything else about it. I feel like I've heard more than just the title, but I don't.
Well, what do you want to know about it?
Nothing.
You don't even want to know what Doctor it is?
No, I do want to know what Doctor it is.
Okay. Third Doctor. John Pertwee.
Where is this in his era? Because I feel like now I feel like we've seen enough of each Doctor, except for maybe 6 and 7. I can start asking like for a triangulation. Like, is this does this fall after or before Colony in Space, or well, obviously it would have to be before Planet of the Spiders, but
right. So it is the story directly before the Colony in Space.
Well, okay then. So now
it is from season 8, his second season as the Doctor.
Okay. So it's like it'll be like watching a flashback.
Yes.
So that means he's still stranded with Unit.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yep. Everything up through the 3 Doctors in season 10, he's stranded. Although he has his occasional short little moments where the Time Lords direct him in a certain direction, but
right. Interesting.
Kind of.